And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 20th day of November. And today we have the weekend roundup, and today we have lots and lots to talk about. We will do a weekend coverage of some of the functions and events that have taken place. We'll show you a glimpse of what's going to happen tonight. Tonight is the Music Junction, that's right. So don't forget to tune in at 6 p.m. and you'll get coverage. With the Diwali Dhamaka, we've got a range of artists joining us. So there's Yusuf Ali Khan, there's Chandan Das, there's Manju Verma, there's glimpses from the Sargam Academy School as well, and Parminder is joining us as well. So there'll be lots of wonderful stars presented by the lovely R.J. Savi. So tonight at 6, so we'll hope to see you all there at that time as well. But right now, because we have so much to get through today, lots and lots to talk about, first of all, let's go to Northern Territory.
There have been 2 new positive cases in the Katherine cluster detected overnight. This takes the cluster to 25 confirmed cases. The new cases are a 33-year-old non-Aboriginal male and a 59-year-old Aboriginal female. The male is a health worker who initially had contact with an earlier positive case as part of his work. He had already been classified as a close contact. He is, I believe, the first health worker in the Territory to be positive for COVID-19. The man was fully vaccinated. However, he also has other existing health issues, so he has been transported to Royal Darn Hospital for treatment. The woman is associated with one of the positive households, but had not previously been identified as a contact, either casual or close. She took a COVID test because she had symptoms. I don't have her vaccination status at this time. The interviewing and tracing for her has only just started, so there may be some new exposure sites later this morning. Please pay attention to the website and keep following the news. In a sec, I'll go through the contact tracing and testing numbers that have come in so far. Then I want to talk more about the situation as it stands in Katherine and the critical need for more testing and vaccinations. Before I do,
is a critical need for more testing and the vaccine up there in Northern Territory. While they have managed to keep safe up till now, but as the borders open, as people start moving around, this was expected that this would have happened. Well, right now, let's go to South Australia with a government video. They put out a video to explain about the apps.
The state government is committed to keeping South Australia safe and strong. And with our borders reopening, we're prepared and good to go. From the 23rd of November, if you're entering South Australia, you'll be required to visit sa.gov.au and complete Entry Check SA before you cross the border. By providing some simple details including evidence of vaccination, Entry Check SA will assess your COVID-19 risk. You'll be advised of the entry conditions that apply to you. Depending on your Entry Check SA assessment, you may be sent a link to download the Health Check SA app. Health Check SA will help you monitor any symptoms you may have and guide you through any quarantine or testing requirements. The state government is also making it easy to show your proof of vaccination when you check in via the QR code system in your MySA.gov app. This makes proving your vaccination status in South Australia much easier. For more information and help, visit sa.gov.au.
And this is a sign of time to come, and this is going to be more and more common, and not only in South Australia, and I believe that most of these states and territories would be looking at something similar, because this is going to be the new norm. Well, right now, let's go to Victoria.
So what do these rule changes from 11:59 p.m. tonight mean? Well, first and foremost, there are no more caps. There are no more quotients. There are no more rules in terms of how many people can be in different spaces. So visitors to your home, back to normal. The number of people in a pub or a cafe or a restaurant, back to normal. It won't be COVID rules that determine how many people are at the pub. It'll be the liquor licence, back to normal. You can stand up to have a drink. Dance floors are open again. All of these things which we've missed and which are absolutely about getting to as normal a situation as possible. That normality that we've all craved, we're able to deliver that as a result of the quite amazing work that Victorians have done in getting vaccinated in record time and in record numbers. Each of the milestones, 70, 80 and now 90, we've got there early. We've been able to do more than we thought we would, and that's a credit to every single Victorian who's gone and got vaccinated, who has played their part. Now, Martin is going to speak a little bit about more in a moment, a little bit more about some changes to contact tracing and case management, because we will see more and more cases, but they become less and less relevant because we've got so many people vaccinated. And then Jerome will also speak about some of those matters, and Ben will talk about the public health picture and why there are still some restrictions, particularly in relation to masks.
So that's the news coming from Victoria, and of course we know that Victoria has been under fire and all those protests that have been taking place there, and of course Daniel Andrews has come in direct fire. This has also resulted in Prime Minister coming public with his comment.
Very clear yesterday in denunciating any violence, threats or intimidation that is applied against anyone, and we have absolutely no truck with that one whatsoever. I couldn't have been clearer about denunciating the violence and the threats and the intimidation. They have no place in Australia's public policy debate whatsoever. I have consistently said all the way through that there is a deal with Australians, and that deal with Australians, we said, and particularly as we saw here in New South Wales, Dom, we said come forward and get vaccinated. Victorians did that. In the ACT they've done that. And in Queensland and Western Australia we're increasingly seeing that. And I said, when we get vaccinated, when we hit those marks that have been set by the scientific experts at 80%, that's when Australians expect governments to step back and for them to step forward. And that is my government's view. I'm going to keep the deal with Australians. I've been saying this consistently ever since I put the national plan together and got all of the states and territories to agree to it. And we're going to keep going with that plan. Australians have earned that. They've kept their part of the deal. I assure you that I intend to keep mine.
And of course, he is intent to keep his plan in place. And with all that commentary that's been happening in and around that, and the politics that plays, of course, the party politics comes into play as well. Well, the other news that's been making is MLC Insurance has failed. And when we look at the cases, especially many times people who have invested or spent, age completely, investing or taking out a life insurance only to find out that there is no surrender value and that, all the limitations are there. So many people have been caught up in that. Here's that report.
It is the case that this conduct spanned a very significant period of time, and some of the impacts of the conduct we allege were quite tragic. We've seen circumstances where somebody who thought they had cover for a condition known as severe rheumatoid arthritis, very debilitating condition, went to get the cover, were told that they were not entitled to it when indeed they were, and MLC needed to remediate that one individual customer, insured person, $195,000. So you can see why these are, many people impacted by this. For some of the affected insured people, the consequences were very significant indeed.
Now, customers have been refunded by MLC, so what sort of civil penalty are you looking at?
That's right. So we certainly acknowledge that MLC has remediated the customers that were impacted by this conduct, but we think it's very important for a case like this where the conduct spans so many people over such a long period of time that the court make orders finding that the conduct has breached the law, and also that significant pecuniary penalties are imposed.
Now, during the Banking Royal Commission, there were lots of case studies involving misconduct by insurers, including, as you say, failing to update medical definitions. So do you think life insurance is a waste of money if companies won't pay out?
Look, I'm certainly not going to say that life insurance is a waste of money. What I am going to say, though, is that it is critical that insurers who are offering these kind of services to their members honour the promises that they make at the time. So these insured people are handing over their premiums, year on year on a regular basis, expecting that they are going to receive the benefits that they are paying for, and the real onus is on the industry to make sure that their systems, their compliance systems, their legacy systems, their IT upgrades are such that the promises they make to their members are fully honoured.
Yes, and I completely agree with that because what's happened is, in Australia we are migrants. We have come from different countries where the life insurance was something where you paid your premiums for a long time, and then the life insurance would mature. People would get the benefit out of that. Not in Australia. Many people have been caught and they've taken out life insurance policies thinking that that's what might happen, but it doesn't. There is no surrender value. I'm not saying in all the cases, but in most of the cases, you have to look at your policy very carefully because, that same amount of money, if you have been invested in a property or put in a bank, the interest that you'd have got, people have been paying their premiums month after month for years, only to find out that there is no surrender value, and of course some of them, have no cover after a certain age as well. So, these restrictions do not apply or are different in many parts of the world. So, here in Australia, you need to be very careful and carefully read the fine print before paying out all that kind of money in insurance policy. Well, right now, we look at that scenario with one of the experts in one of these panels one day, and Rajkumar Badlani ji, all the way Gujarat से, अमरेली शहर से, आपका भी अभिनंदन है, स्वागत है हमारे इस कार्यक्रम पर. And ladies and gentlemen, moving on, let's move on, because it is time to move on. The borders are opening, the restrictions are easing. Get your passports ready, buy those tickets.
Thank you for coming, Chin Chin. Chin Chin.
After being holed up with no place to go, dreaming of just packing a bag and hopping on a plane, fully vaccinated Australians are joining the rest of the world, lining up to travel. Where to first? Well, let's have a look at where Australians were heading before the pandemic, countdown style, starting with number 10. Fiji. Paradise is calling, and as of the 1st of December, Aussies will be welcome quarantine-free, but will have to take a PCR test before heading home. Singapore is next on the list. Australians over the age of 12 will just need to return a negative COVID test before getting in, and then 2 tests before leaving, one 48 hours prior to travel and another at Changi Airport. After 20 months of closed borders, India has opened up for international visitors. Aussies are on the list that won't need to quarantine and will be allowed to skip a post-arrival COVID test. The land of the rising sun is a bit trickier, with a 10-day quarantine on arrival still in place, but Prime Minister Scott Morrison has flagged that requirement could soon be lifted for vaccinated Australians. Thailand has its doors open to anyone who's fully jabbed and has been in Australia for at least 3 weeks before travelling, but you'll also need to have a travel insurance policy that covers COVID-19. China was a popular destination for Aussie travellers. That might have changed over the course of the pandemic, especially since Canberra has issued a warning that Australians could be arbitrarily detained. Anyone set on going will have to quarantine for 2 weeks on arrival. It's a different story for anyone heading to the UK. No quarantine required, just a test coming and going. The US of A is also welcoming Aussies, also no quarantine required, but anyone over the age of 2 who isn't vaccinated will need to give proof of a negative PCR test no more than 3 days before departure. Australians desperate to go back to Bali can do so, but they'll need to quarantine. Talks are underway to open a vaccinated travel lane. And at the top of the list, New Zealand, which has suspended quarantine-free travel with Australia. Managed isolation is required for a period of 7 days, followed by a period of self-isolation. But for many Australians, it's still easier than getting into Queensland or Western Australia.
To help us navigate all of this, I'm joined by travel.
Yes, and it is, as I mentioned, that, it's easier to get into some of the overseas countries than to come here in Queensland. Well, Well, we'll see how things turn out. Well, right now, as we're now in Delhi, around this time of the year, we always have a lot of things, a lot of pollution and things. And the latest results coming out of there is that there are a lot of children who are suffering from breath or breathing diseases.
Delhi's hospitals are experiencing another surge in patients. But not from COVID. This time it's due to the city's toxic air.
It's because of that he can't sleep throughout the night.
There has been a 3 to 4-fold rise in their number of visits to the hospital. This is directly linked to the high levels of pollution.
At this time every year, fumes from vehicles, crop stubble burning and heavy industry get trapped by cooler weather, slower winds and the Himalayan mountains. In the past week, pollution levels have surged to more than 30 times what's considered safe. Those who work outside, like rickshaw driver Indrajit Sachdeva, described the city as a gas chamber.
My eyes are burning, my throat is choking and I feel breathless.
The chemicals, they damage the lung locally. More importantly, they cross the lung lining and get into our blood.
There's renewed concern about the city's youngest, breathing the tiny airborne particles known as PM 2.5.
There is some studies that show that the cognitive functions of the brain are also affected.
Typically, the government implements short-term emergency measures to provide breathing room. This week, schools were closed indefinitely. 5 coal-based power stations shut. Non-essential trucks were barred from entering and construction was halted. There's even talk of a citywide lockdown, but a long-term fix seems elusive. At the pivotal climate talks in Glasgow, India forced a final deal to keep coal alive by 2050.
You cannot suddenly do this for 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 1 month and expect change. It's not going to happen.
Winter comes every year, so pollution comes every year. Will you impose lockdown every year?
While the state and central government blame each other for inaction, Delhi's title as the world's most polluted capital remains. James Oaten, ABC News.
That is one title, which you're not proud of having. But anyway, right now let's go to India and get the full report with Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stuns the opposition and critics by announcing his government will repeal the 3 controversial farm laws. In a bold political move, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said his government was giving in to a demand to repeal the 3 contentious central farm laws as early as the upcoming winter session of Indian Parliament starting 29th November. Modi made the announcement prior to the first anniversary of the nationwide protest against the bills. He said with humility he was withdrawing the bills on the auspicious occasion of the birth anniversary on 19 November of Sikh Guru Nanak Dev. Modi added that his government tried its level best but failed to convince that the bills were advantageous at least to small farmers.
आज मैं आपको पूरे देश को ये बताने आया हूं कि हमने 3 कृषि कानूनों को वापस लेने का, रिपील करने का निर्णय लिया है। इस महीने के अंत में शुरू होने जा रहे संसद सत्र में, इसी महीने में, हम 3 कृषि कानूनों को रिपील करने की संवैधानिक प्रक्रिया को पूरा कर देंगे। साथियों, मैं आज अपने सभी आंदोलनरत किसान साथियों से आग्रह कर रहा हूं, आज गुरु पर्व का पवित्र दिन है। अब आप अपने अपने घर लौटे, अपने खेत में लौटे, अपने परिवार के बीच लौटे। आइए एक नई शुरुआत करते हैं।
It was in September 2020 that President Ramnath Kovind gave his assent for the three bills passed by Parliament. The three farm laws are the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Bill 2020 and the Farmers Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill 2020, and the Essential Commodities Act is an amendment to the existing Essential Commodities Act. The Act provides for setting up a mechanism allowing the farmers to sell their farm produces outside the agriculture produce market committees. Any license holder trader can buy the produce from the farmers at mutually agreed prices. This trade of farm produces will be free of mandi tax imposed by state governments. The Farmers Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act allows farmers to do contract farming and market their produces freely. The Essential Commodities Act is an amendment to the existing Essential Commodities Act. These bills were passed by Parliament during the monsoon session last year. Farmers have continued to express apprehension that the centre's farm reforms would pave a way for the dismantling of the minimum support price system, leaving them at the mercy of big companies. Modi's announcement is driven by political challenges and major elections coming up soon in the state of Punjab that BJP would like to snatch from the Congress party, and the biggest Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, where Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party is said to expect a tough fight. India and China agree on an early resolution of issues surrounding the line of actual control that caused a border conflict in summer 2020. Indian officials said Indian and Chinese diplomats have agreed on the court need to find an early resolution to the remaining issues along the LAC in eastern Ladakh while fully abiding by bilateral agreements and protocols so as to restore peace and tranquility, end quote. This development comes a month after the failed 13th round of Corps Commander level talks between India and China led to a hardening of positions on both sides. The 23rd meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs took place through video conference. Indian Ministry of External Affairs said the two countries also agreed that both sides in the interim and also later continue to ensure a stable ground situation and avoid any untoward incident. The two sides recalled the agreement between Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Dushanbe in September that military and diplomatic officials should continue discussions to resolve outstanding issues along the LAC in eastern Ladakh. Accordingly, the two sides had candid and in-depth discussions on the situation along the LAC in western sector of India-China border areas and also reviewed the developments since the last meeting of the senior commanders of both sides, which was held on 10th October 2021. It was agreed that both sides should hold the next round of the senior commanders meeting at an early date to achieve the objective of complete disengagement from all the friction points along the LAC in the western sector in accordance with the existing bilateral agreements and protocols. The Chinese statement echoed India's description of the talks, saying the two sides had a candid and in-depth exchange of views on the recent developments in the China-India border areas and agreed to consolidate the existing outcomes of the disengagement, strictly abide by the agreements and protocols and the consensus reached between the two sides, and prevent the situation on the ground from relapsing. The 13th round of Corps Commander level talks took place at the Moldo border personnel meeting point near Chushul on October 10th after a year and a half into the military standoff in eastern Ladakh to try and resolve the situation at Hot Springs. The following day, India and China had their sharpest exchange since the Galwan Valley clash in June 2020. Troops have continued to face each other at Hot Springs ever since the Chinese crossed the LAC in May 2020. US government settles a lawsuit allowing spouses of L2 visa workers to automatically receive work authorization. Here is a report. US Citizenship and Immigration Services settled a lawsuit in November 2021 allowing spouses of L2 workers to automatically receive work authorization and also an automatic 180-day extension of work authorization for some spouses of H-1B workers. Jesse Bless, Director of Litigation at the American Immigration Lawyers Association, said as the US government agency begins implementation, L2 spouses will no longer have to apply for work authorization and could immediately work upon entering the USA. For H4 spouses who have lawful status and merely need to renew their employment authorization, they will now enjoy an automatic extension of their authorization for 180 days after expiration should the agency fail to process their timely filled applications, said Bless. Concerns have arisen that the extension of EAD is only valid as long as the H4 status is valid. The law firm Puyang and Wu noted on Twitter that, quote, in most cases, filing the H4 extension and H4 EAD renewal concurrently does not grant you the automatic extension. The H4 extension would have to be approved first before you may benefit from the full 180-day auto extension, end quote. As the agency finally followed the law, it brought relief to many. India says Pakistan law allowing Kulbhushan Jadhav right to appeal against death penalty has shortcomings. India says that the law passed by the Pakistan Parliament on November 17th allowing death row Indian prisoner Kulbhushan Jadhav the right to appeal has the same shortcomings as the earlier ordinance and is far from addressing the ICJ judgment. Indian Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Arindam Bagchi told media persons that the law simply codifies the shortcomings of the previous ordinance. Pakistan has passed a bill in a parliament joint session to give Jadhav the right to appeal against his death sentence as per the decision of the ICJ. Jadhav, a 51-year-old retired Indian Navy officer, was sentenced to death by a Pakistani military court on charges of espionage and terrorism in April 2017. India had approached the ICJ against Pakistan for denial of consular access to Jadhav and challenging the death sentence. Bagchi also said that Pakistan continues to deny unimpeded and unhindered consular access to Jadhav and has failed to create an atmosphere in which a fair trial can be conducted. India Meteorological Department warns of flash floods in Tamil Nadu and heavy showers in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Puducherry states of India. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued flash flood warnings for India's states of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Puducherry. And due to heavy rainfall in several districts of Indian states of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry and the reservoirs in the region getting heavy inflows, the Central Water Commission issued an advisory for the dam operators to keep strict vigil and release water carefully. The heavy rainfall is a result of the depression over Bay of Bengal, which moved northwestwards and crossed North Tamil Nadu and the adjoining South Andhra Pradesh coast between Puducherry and Chennai on 19 November. The depression is not deep, but the rainfall is expected to be high mainly because the northeast monsoon is active and hence the moist northeasterly winds converging along Tamil Nadu coast could bring in copious amounts of rainfall. IMD has forecast high rainfall of more than 250 mm in the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, several areas in Tirupati were inundated on 18 November after heavy rains lashed Andhra Pradesh Chittoor district, causing massive flooding. Water levels in and around Tirupati, Tirumala and the rest of the district have risen to the point where they threaten to enter houses including Madhuranagar, Volavani Gunta, Lakshmipuram, the Air Bypass Road, Chandragiri town and the Kapila Tirtham temple at the foot of the Tirumala hills, the News Minute reported. Flooding has also caused traffic disruptions. The IMD has also predicted widespread rainfall in Karnataka over the next 4 days. For today, the Met Department has issued an orange alert for Bengaluru and the Ghats and a yellow alert in some coastal districts and north interior of Karnataka. Abhishek Bachchan starrer Bob Biswas to release on December 3rd. Bollywood star Abhishek Bachchan returns to the screen after a hiatus. Big B's son will be seen in film Bob Biswas that will premiere on December 3rd. Produced by Red Chillies Entertainment and Bound Script, Bob Biswas will premiere on Z5. The film is directed by Diya Annapurna Ghosh, is produced by Gauri Khan, Sujoy Ghosh and Gaurav Verma. The crime drama is set against the backdrop of a love story showcasing the dual life led by contract killer Bob Biswas. The film shot in Kolkata also stars Chitrangada Singh. Filmmaker Sujoy Ghosh from Bound Script added that, quote, "This is a new Bob Biswas. He is like any of us. This is the world of Bob where he's trying to cope with each role as his life unfolds before him," end quote. He added that creating this world and Bob was super exciting and having Abhishek on board has made the film even cooler. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that report. Well, right now, let's take a look at what happened during the week. So, first of all, we have the real estate update every Wednesday with Usha Chen.
Adelaide 700.
When we look at auctions, that is fine. The number of listings we have seen is quite impressive. But as we know that lots of mums and dads out in the suburban areas, they still love their private treaty sales. So what's been happening in the private treaty market?
Yes, a lot of people still prefer, especially mum and dads, they still prefer to buy as private treaty. So looking at the capital cities, the number of sales in Sydney by private negotiators.
So that if you want to watch the full report, you can go on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, and all of those episodes are still there and you can watch them all. And next up we have also on a weekly basis the travel updates with Tanvi Goyal.
Guys, as I said, there are so many things. So let me just go through some of the main parts. Those who are in Queensland must be already very excited and must have seen some recent updates came up a couple of days back. So let me just a little bit clarify on that, because we received so many calls and messages on that as well. So Queensland government will reopen the borders to some fully vaccinated interstate travellers at the moment. As the state reaches around 70% double vaccination rate. So eligible Aussies can apply for a border pass from last couple of days, but will need to arrive by air and have proof of negative PG-approved COVID test within the previous 72 hours of arrival. So that's pretty much the requirements we have for international travel as well. So, but now... So
there you go, the requirements for international travel. And of course, yesterday was the White Ribbon Day, and I'd like to thank ST, Usha and Professor Prasad, amongst others who attended. Okay. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to ST and Usha for joining us on the White Ribbon Breakfast here in CBD at Marco Polo. So, once again, thank you very much for the support. Today's White Ribbon Day. So, what's your message to the community?
Thank you so much for having us here, Umesh. I have been associated with Queensland White Ribbon for a long time, and this is the day we always mark and celebrate the day, and we try to get some funds and collect some funds. We have been doing it at Diagram Shopping Centre. It's basically awareness of White Ribbon and what White Ribbon does. A lot of people don't know what White Ribbon is, and White Ribbon is an organization led by men for domestic violence. So domestic violence for women and family violence. And we are here to support. We're having a great breakfast at Marco Polo restaurant, and it's a great morning. A lot of people surrounding here. Thank you so much for having me on White Ribbon Day.
And over to ST.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much, Umesh, for hosting this amazing breakfast and for having me on board. White Ribbon Australia, White Ribbon Day is something that I'm very proud to be part of and also supporting. Many people don't know that White Ribbon is actually there to help others and what White Ribbon also does. The issue of domestic violence is very close to my heart because a lot of people don't know that there is a lot of different types of domestic violence. It's not just about bodily harm, it can also be about the manipulation of the mind, financial control, emotional abuse. There's so many different types of domestic and family violence, and I think it's very important for all of us to be aware that it's not just about seeing someone with scars, physical scars, but also the scars that you cannot see. And it's our job to recognize that and assist people who are going through the journey and not judge them for their choices, but actually just give them the support that they need. So thank you so much, Umesh, for hosting this breakfast. It's been amazing, and I look forward to becoming more part of White Ribbon Australia.
Thank you. And also joining us was Professor Prasad. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is a great pleasure to have Professor Prasad here with us supporting the White Ribbon Breakfast, the CBD Breakfast. Once again, thank you so much for joining. And what's the message out to the community?
Thank you, Umesh. Also enlightening me about White Ribbon Day. I know very brief about that before. and thank you to opportunity also inviting us to host this breakfast. Indeed, I mean, we know physiologically and psychologically, cognitively, women are very, very strong, and they are the run. Look at a mother, look at a wife, look at any woman in the society. They run, take all the burdens. They're very strong in that regard. But physically, the area where they need support, I think the slogan is very clear. Women's safety is important part of men's life. It is not only good for women, but it is good for entire society. So what you're doing to White Ribbon Day, protecting women's and supporting women is a honorable thing, which is the one, as I mentioned, it is not only good for women, but it's good for society, for all of us, as women will be key part of society. I'm very happy to join this morning, this breakfast. Thanks for the opportunity.
That is wonderful message there from Professor Prasadji, the incoming president for GoPio Queensland. Well, there you go. You had it first from us here. Well, tonight is our Diwali Dhamaka segment of the Music Junction, and here's a taste of what's on for tonight.
है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा हसीनों ने बुलाया गले से भी लगाया बहुत समझाया यही न समझा हसीनों ने बुलाया गले से भी लगाया बहुत समझाया यही न समझा बहुत भोला है बेचारा न जाने किस पे आएगा है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा अजब है दीवाना न दर न ठिकाना ज़मीं से बेगाना फलक से जुदा अजब है दीवाना न दर न ठिकाना ज़मीं से बेगाना फलक से जुदा ये एक टूटा हुआ तारा न जाने किस पे आएगा है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा ज़माना देखा सारा है सब का सहारा ये दिल ही हमारा हुआ न किसी का ज़माना देखा सारा है सब का सहारा ये दिल ही हमारा हुआ न किसी का सफर में है ये बंजारा न जाने किस पे आएगा है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा हुआ जो कभी राजी तो मिला नहीं साजी, जहाँ पे लगी बाजी वहीं पे हारा। हुआ जो कभी राजी तो मिला नहीं खाजी, जहाँ पे लगी बाजी वहीं पे हारा। जमाने भर का नाचारा न जाने किस पे आएगा, है अपना दिल तो आवारा न जाने किस पे आएगा।
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was Yusuf Ali Khan. He will be joining us tonight, and there will be lots more. Beautifully presented by the beautiful RJ Savi. That's tonight at 6 p.m. Brisbane time. Please do tune in. You will have a wonderful time for our Diwali Dhamaka on Australian Indian Radio. Well, it is the time to say goodbye for now, and we're looking forward to seeing you all tonight. There'll be amazing backdrops and the sets, and of course all the video infills and everything together with the excellent commentary and presentation of RJ Savi and some of the very local talented artists joining us on the Diwali Dhamaka. We'll see you tonight at 6 p.m.